Welcome, everyone. My name is Ryan Susky. I'm Director of Programs over at the Ohio Center for Law-Related Education, and I'll be serving as the facilitator today for the Unit 4 hearing for the We the People National Invitational for Kingsway Christian Middle School. In just a moment, I'm going to have the judges introduce themselves, followed, of course, by the students introducing themselves as well before we begin the hearing. The hearing will take the form of a 4-minute prepared statement from the students, followed by 8 minutes of follow-up question from the judges. Now, my microphone will be muted during the hearing, but I will be holding up time cards, so I do recommend that you put your computer on gallery view so that you can see my time signals and, of course, your colleagues. At the conclusion of the hearing, the judges will give some brief feedback to the teams, and then we'll be on our way. With that, I will hand things over to your chairperson to begin today's introductions.
Okay, and I'll remember to unmute before I start trying to talk to you. My name is Joe Stewart, teaching at Clemson University in South Carolina. It's good to see you again. We had fun talking to you yesterday. We want to have some more fun talking to you today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Owen. I'm a professor of political science at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C.
Hello again, I'm Deshawn Whitaker, We the People teacher in Charles County Public Schools in Maryland.
And please introduce yourselves and your teacher.
We're Unit 4 from Kingsway Christian School. I'm Maris.
I'm Micaiah Thrower.
I'm Sadie Caldera.
And I'm Nora Ellis, and this is our teacher, Mrs. Nolan.
Okay, great to see you all again. Well, no surprise, we're looking at question 2 today. So I will read that and then we'll listen to your presentation. It begins with a quote from the political scientist Robert Dahl. If a law has been properly passed by the lawmaking branches of a democratic government, why should judges have the power to declare it unconstitutional? Do you agree or disagree with Robert Dahl? Why? What is judicial review and why is it controversial? What has been the impact of judicial review on American society? Once the Supreme Court has decided that a law is unconstitutional, what power, if any, do the people have to change the Constitution? You may begin.
We collectively disagree with Robert Dahl's statement because the Supreme Court and its judges have every right to declare any law as they see fit unconstitutional. For example, the Supreme Court struck down the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act in 1992. This law banned people from betting on sports games. After this law was made unconstitutional, many states were willing to let their residents bet on games. Therefore, the Supreme Court is able to declare a law unconstitutional for the benefits of our ever-changing society. Over the years, many things have evolved to fit our living. Based on the advancements we have today, laws can progress based on new appointees stepping into positions or new view from citizens. Laws can be unconstitutional because of the constant change in the perspectives of laws.
In simple terms, judicial review is the action by the power of the court to declare a law unconstitutional, which, according to Madison versus Marbury, is rightfully the Supreme Court's power. Many people find that judicial review is controversial because it gives the ability to evolve laws. Although the power was given to the Supreme Court is not stated in the Constitution itself. This power is used in the Plessy versus Ferguson case of 1896, in which they declared that the practice of segregation is permitted. Controversially, in the case Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, the Supreme Court declared that segregation was unauthorized, contradicting what was said in the previous case. On the other side of the spectrum, many people believe that judicial review shouldn't even exist. The framers made the amendment process in Article 5 for us to be able to change the Constitution for the ability to modify our living based on the current situations. When a law is made, it shouldn't be changed based on our own opinions, but for the best of the people. We find that we can often forget how crucial judicial review is and how it is fundamental to our country. It keeps the branches under review, which is a core piece to having a balanced government. Judicial review's impact on American society is the dependability of their interpretation of the Constitution. For example, in the Lochner era, the Lochner versus New York case of 1905 caused the Supreme Court to change their opinion. In this case, the Supreme Court set 10 hours of labor in New York.
This impacted our society because people can profit as much money as they need to sustain themselves and their families. But in the Atkins versus Children's Hospital cases in 1923, the Supreme Court overturned Lochner by expressing that the government can limit the hours of female workers. Although in the West Coast versus versus Parish, the Supreme Court agreed that the 14th Amendment does not guarantee the freedom of contract, thus ruling that the government can restrain the hours of workers like in the Lochner case.
Through these cases, we can see the impact on American families having the opportunity to be financially successful in an honorable way. The citizens can modify laws by petitioning the legislator. The Supreme Court cannot amend a law. They can only declare them constitutional or unconstitutional when brought before the court. The people have the power to change the Constitution by presenting a bill to the legislator by a state representative or senator. In 1801, the 7th Congress had only 54 bills drafted, while starting in 1973 to present, the number of drafted bills has gotten to over 20,000. History shows that the right to draft bills has recently been more exercised. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and we are now ready to accept any questions that you may have.
Okay, well, thank you. How do we, I hear people just describe themselves all the time as being originalist and wanting to stick by what they discern to be the original meaning of the Constitution. And yet you've argued that we have to deal with change. How would you respond to the people who say, no, we should just stick with the original meaning of the Constitution?
I would respond by giving like different examples of like how our society has changed. Like for an example, like in the Constitution, there were laws about slaves because at that time they had slaves. But now in our current society, we don't have any slaves anymore because our Constitution has changed to where the 13th and 14th and 15th Amendment has given slaves rights, citizenship rights, and be able to vote.
To add on to what Akai was saying, it's sometimes hard to also interpret the original meaning of the Constitution. With changes in our society, sometimes you have to go off of the newest things, such as maybe the 13th Amendment. When you get a large change, you have to kind of go off of that. Though it was added later than the original writing of the Constitution, it is now a part of the Constitution and should be treated as such.
So I'm going to probe a little further about something that you said in your statement, that one of the ways that the people can get involved in the policymaking process is to represent bills or have bills represented by the legislature. How realistic is this as a way for members of the public to influence policy?
I think it's actually very realistic because your senators are there so that you can present bills to them so they can take it to the government and be your voice in the government. And if we weren't allowed to do that, then what's their purpose in government at all?
And to add on to what Nora was saying, it doesn't even matter about age, because we had a group from our school that Nora was even a part of that presented a bill to our senator because it is very possible for anyone that's a citizen to present a bill that can be changed by their representatives and senators, but still their voices can be heard.
On the other side of the spectrum, it can also be unrealistic because of how long a bill can take, because there are different committees and the legislator that it goes through, that it keeps on being revising and edited. And then eventually they have to decide, like, either if they want to just let that bill go or to continue to do that bill.
To add on to what Akai was saying, when my group was doing research before we presented a bill to our senator, we researched just how long it would take to amend the Indiana Constitution, and it would take about 4 years. So
All right. Could you talk a little bit more about the bill you presented? I'm interested in hearing about it.
Well, our bill was about limiting the term limits for senators and representatives and how many terms they can serve. Yeah, it would take a really long time for this to actually be heard in the Senate, but that's kind of what we presented.
Well, that leads to the obvious follow-up question. Would you support term limits for judges? Right now they have, once federal judges, once they're appointed, serve for life. What would you think about term limits for judges? Anyone? I'm not just picking on Nora, even though she's the bill's author. So
You can go ahead.
So you go.
Okay. So for term limits, like for me personally, I think that like being able to like have like the same people in the judiciary all the time also like provides kind of a consistency to like what hearings they do and like consistency to what they decide to do. But on the other side of the spectrum, like if you change the people, then like they could also like have more people that have a chance to judge other people in the Supreme Court. But the constant change in people can also like affect like the consistency of like the judiciary, and the judiciary can also lose power from that also.
Yeah, I can see both sides as well, but personally, I think that it would be important to limit terms, not like 4-year terms like the president might have, but longer terms that could even be 20 years, because I think that they should be consistent, but at the same time, you should have different views. And if different political parties are kind of rising up and support a judge, their voices should be able to be heard.
I think I would want, oh, sorry, Sadie. I think that I would want to either have really long term limits like Maris was saying, or just keep it how it is, because otherwise policy would change very, very often with, all the different views and the differing people coming into the court. And that would be hard to keep track of.
To add what my colleagues have said, when they were making the Judiciary and the Judiciary Act of 1789, they didn't put a limit on the judges. So we also have to kind of think about that too.
Great. So kind of following in this line of thought, do you think that the Supreme Court justices should be elected by the people? Or is the system that we have now, where they're appointed by the president and approved by the Senate, working?
I think that the system that we have now works well, because if you have judges elected by the people, they almost have to represent a political party or be, they almost have to pay back the people that might have voted for them for the beliefs that they had. So it's very hard, because then you almost have judges with political parties and that support rather heavily on one party. And I think that is kind of favoring different political groups that are larger versus the common good of the people in every situation.
I agree with my colleague, because I feel that a more public vote would be able to see, like, it wouldn't be so biased in a way. And if it was as if it was appointed by, as if politicians were appointing judges, that would support their views. And
go ahead and finish that sentence.
And the politicians would appoint judges that would that would support their views other than judges appointed by the people, and that would support what they want.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Again, very, very much enjoyed our conversation today. You took a clear position on the quotation from Robert Gall, and that's always appreciated because it gives us a good starting point on that. You wrestled with one of the kind of conflicting ideas. You talked about the importance of dealing with change over time and gave some examples. But you also then talked about the need for dependability or consistency. And those are the kind of conflicting values that we always wrestle with. And the fact that you recognize what those are is very important, because that's what, and you're able to deal with those intelligently. It's part of what we're dealing with in civic education and discussing those intelligently. It's good that you pulled on a very local example, one of your classmates talking about this process. And you're also able to pull on some other stuff that you obviously learned in the class, the nature of the Judiciary Act of 1789. I thought one of the really strong points of your team was that you were good in presenting both sides of all the issues that we talked about, and which tells me that you have studied this thoroughly and have reflected on it, and very much enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought you made a very strong presentation today, and that you really shined in the Q&A. I like the way that you started out with the issue of sports betting and talked about that in terms of an evolving society, which the evolving society idea was something that a thread that you carried through, not only in your prepared remarks, but also as you were talking about it, or as you were responding to our questions. I like the fact that you gave a clear definition of judicial review, and that you showed a good knowledge of a range of Supreme Court cases. And I really thought that that whole series of cases, starting with Lochner, that you cited to show how policy can change over time and how that's related to the court's action, I thought that was very well done. Yeah, I like the answer to my question, because it was sparked by, you said that today over 20,000 bills are raised, in Congress a year. They're raised. But I think what I was trying to get at was that very few of them actually pass. So kind of getting your legislation passed is a lot more difficult than raising it. And I think that, and then the Akia raised the point, well, it takes a long time. And that's right. It's but the process, it is there and it is available. And I think the fact that you gave your own experience with it really shed light on your perspective on this, the question. I also appreciated getting back to the Constitution itself and what was provided for in 1789. So I thought you did a really nice job, and I very much enjoyed talking about this topic with you today.
Yes, I agree with everything my colleague said. Very nice job. I like how you were able to take us on a journey throughout history with the different court cases. I like how you referenced everything back to the Constitution, and that I understood your position. Benefits to our changing society. And I wish we had more time to talk about what those changes mean and how we can, how judicial review plays a role in that. I like that you respectfully disagree with each other. Everybody didn't have the same opinion, and they were able to support their opinion well. Overall, you did a really good job.